Hello, guys. Welcome. Welcome to another episode of Ripster Daily Trade Recaps and Daily Teachings. Hopefully, everybody had a great Monday. So, all right, guys. So we had a bounce day in the market today. Although the bounce was little not a clean bounce, it did kind of fake us out a little bit. But I'll show you how you could have traded the bounce, or how the traders in the community traded the bounce, and how did we manage the risk. What was our risk on those bounce plays? Why did we get a fake out initially? And how the second the second curl and the bounce came in, and how you have used the Ripster EMA Clouds most effectively to trade the bounce, the choppy bounce, right? So we will cover that. Very important video today. We're going to cover a lot of these concepts. It was a rough day for a lot of traders because of the choppy bounce, but let's see how we navigated it. So make sure you watch the video. It's in different segments. You can watch the segment you want to watch. Anyways, before I start, quick introduction to anybody who's new to me, new to my YouTube, new to my Twitter accounts, or new to our community. All these trade recaps and all these teachings that I share with you every day are mostly from from anything I share on Twitter, on X, YouTube, or mostly from our community. We trade a repeatable system called Ripster EMA Cloud system that thousands of traders across the world use to trade consistently. Thousands of traders use this system to trade consistently, and we also have repeatable setups. These are the setups that I invented based upon this system that I teach day in, day out to you guys on YouTube video, in my webinars, in my community, or everyday teaching in my community. We have repeatable setups. We do not trade random. We always trade when there's a setup. Every morning, me and my team, we create a game plan for the day, which includes the major news, index stocks, which I call as a marketplace. The marketplace moves with the market. And then we have upgrades and downgrades, and we focus on that. I usually highlight my top plays. Whenever there's a top plays, I highlight them as a red, as a top focus, so that traders can focus on those. Any new traders, right? So we have initial game plan, support and resistance. We have the game plan, what we are going to do, and we basically do according to our game plan all day long. And I will show you when we go to that play how we did it. In addition to that, we also have a day 2, day 3 setups. Anything that has made a move yesterday or day before, this is our repeatable strategy called day 2, day 3 setups, and we trade them as well. In addition, we share crypto stocks, crypto watch list, support pivot, resistance pivot. We share all those. And you can trade any crypto stocks based upon the clouds and the system. We also trade ES and NASDAQ futures based on the Ripster cloud system. And my guidance on the futures and SPY QQQ, I give the live guidance to trade them as well. And you can pause the screen if you understand how we trade this with these levels, and it'll help you out. Also, every day we have our levels marked for our index stocks, our major stocks, which we trade every day, irrespective of the market. If there's nothing much to play in the news plays, we play these setups with the market. This is why they are our daily trading stocks, which have the most volume and most liquidity to trade every day. In our community, we have a bunch of scanners. We have 3-4 option scanners. We have stock scanners. We have breaking news alerts. We have audio news alerts. We have even news streams. We have Bookmap. We have our tools, which are $500-$600 a month, which are free in the community, that we try to use every day to trade, make money in the markets, keep our losers small, our winners big. I'm usually on a voice first few hours of the market open, guiding the traders through various trades. I am also usually I'm available all day, guiding the traders if its market is really hot, or various setups, and what we are doing. Any trades I take, or any mostly trades I do not take, but I guide the community through our game plan and all those trades. So that's what we're going to cover today. That's the introduction. Let's start. So, all right, let's start with SPY QQQ. What was our plan on SPY QQQ? Let's look at the daily chart first on SPY. What happened today? So let's look at the market today, right? So market was gapping down today, and we got a bounce. And same thing for QQQs. We were gapping down and we got a bounce, right? So it looks nice, nice little recovery hammer candle. Our DID system tell us that we are going back and we are bullish, and we will talk about that. And before we look at that, let's look at what was our morning plan, right? So our morning plan was pretty straightforward. The morning plan on the SPY, market is gapping down. considering broader tariffs in April 2, market at a big support. The game plan I gave everybody, market at a big support. Watch VIX 2350 today. If that holds and market push and it pushes out 24, then we will short the market. But if that doesn't happen, that VIX breaks 2350, then we watch the 512 calls. Remember the pre-market low rules. What is the pre-market low rule? I will explain it to you as we go. And then bearish to neutral, long if VIX breaks 4, 5, 12 curls, right? So that was our plan. So how did we execute the plan and what did we do? So every day you trade, when you're trying to trade the market, especially if you're just day trading, so you need to remember the concepts that we have our initial morning 9:30 to 10 a.m. trade, and then we have our 10 a.m. trades or 10:30 trades. So as you see that, it'll be pretty clear to you. Let's look here, right? So as you see, this was the VIX. This was the where VIX was right at the open. You see this, right? You see this? This is where the VIX opened, right here, and 24 area. And VIX pushed, right? So VIX pushed right after the first 20 minutes. And that first 20 minutes, we were short. So let's see. So when VIX pushed, first 20 minutes, bearish to open, and so you can short it at the open. That was my guidance, was on the voice. When you were shorting was SPY QQQ. I think it was, we were mostly doing the QQQs. Short scalps, okay, right? So we were shorting it. So that's fine. But you need to watch. You cannot leave your trade right back. You can short NASDAQ, you can short QQQ. The reason we were shorting it was the pre-market low break. Pre-market low break, right? If you look here. So once it failed here, I told everybody first 2 minutes shorts are okay, right? The shorts are okay. So you can see your level. So we don't trade smaller time frames. So I'll show you first 20 minutes from 461.50, 461, we dipped to 457. That was a beautiful, beautiful move. On the options, 60, 70, 80% gains on the options. And then also if you were trading the NASDAQ futures, you got that nice little, couple hundred points to the downside. And same thing for SPY, right? If you want to look at the 3 minute, if I can clarify it to you in the 3 minute as well. If you see the 3 minute right here on QQQ, you can see how much time it was to short it. My guidance was 9:32. So why were we shorting it, right? You will tell me here if the market went up and you were shorting it. Yes, because that was our morning trade. That was our morning trade. So that was our morning trade, 9:30, 10 a.m. Now, when the market started to push, look what VIX started to do, right? So you have to make those decisions pretty quick, changing the bias. You can't stay short. So as market, let me see if I can show you the VIX here. Let's look at VIX here. So you see, as VIX started to pull back, the market started to bounce right here, 10 a.m. So we always cover our first profits into 10 a.m. So the bounce all came at 10 a.m. We covered our profits, right? So we covered our profits at 10 a.m. Now we'll talk about the calls we tried, which did not work. We lost on those first calls. We'll talk about that later. But the point here is, as the VIX, what was the plan in the pre-market? 2350, right? 2350. So once 2350 is breaking, it's breaking down, you have to get out. And you see the clouds are pushing, we get out. Basically, QQQ pushes over the cloud, we get out. We do note something that 3450 is right on top of QQQ, right? When 3450 is, today was all about 3450. SPY was pushing, but it rejected 3450. You see this? Rejected 3450. So at this point, of course, we covered our shorts because 10 a.m. bounce. Other thing, the important thing, the SPY reclaimed the pre-market lows. When you reclaim pre-market lows, you should not be short. Because you should not be short. Because you only want to short when the pre-market lows break. And remember, that was the pre-market low right here. And when we shorted it, we covered it. That's fine, right? We made a little bit money and we covered the rest of it. That's fine. Now comes how do we long it? So that's what we're going to cover in our next segment. So this was the morning setup. You can see my my guidance here, and we can also show you. Then we covered our shorts. Stops rest on the 512s. You can see that when we trading SPY QQQ, and we shorted a bunch of other names were short. It was not just that. You can look at Microsoft was good enough short. in the first 1 hour. We had some other names which were showing weakness. With that, Google was a good short. But you have to know that this is a 9:30 to 10 a.m. trade. Google never pushed over 512 clouds, and you see that it rejected, right? Many other examples. But its system, the system is still working fine. How we manage it, it's on up to us, right? When I'm on the voice, I make sure I tell my community. So that was what was happening in the morning, and this is why the bounce was not pretty effective. You see, initially a lot of things were bouncing, but a lot of other names did not, right? Let's talk about the failed curls now. So let's talk about the failed curls, right? So the VIX strategy that I gave in the morning, it kind of worked. If you simply bought with the pre-market lows risk and you went to bed and put your stops in, you made money by end of the day, right? But we were trying to time our entries, and what we got one fake out. And let's see what that fake out was. If you look at that fake out, if you want to look at the QQQs, QQQ pushed over the clouds and then it failed, right? We were trying to do this. Sometimes we don't have to wait for the candle open, and sometimes you have to get back in and you use the lows of the candle, and you can do it. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That's fine, because when it doesn't work, you don't lose too much. That's the key, right? Because VIX started to bounce. Why didn't it work? Because as soon as we tried to go long, VIX bounced from that 2350 area and reclaimed. Now, that's why we got out of the longs, and you could short scalp it, but you will lose money as we bounce here. So that was fine. So when that happened, we took a long. We'll talk about those NVDA Tesla in a bit, and we took a loss basically. Not really loss, because I'll show you that, but QQQ was definitely a loss. And it's the failed curls, right? So that was a failed curls. So there was failed curls. So that's fine. Why it was failed curls? Was 2350 was so at this time, you get a little frustrated. You did not short, but at 10 a.m. you're trying to long, and then the long is not working. So it was kind of frustrating day by that time, right? The trade, especially the new traders, because this is the market, right? Some names were really running nicely. We'll talk about them, Apple and others. But specifically, if you were trading just the markets, though the market was giving you a lollipop and was not giving a nice trend. So after that, what happened? So then came the second curl try. I explained today something to note. Whenever there's a trend line, guys, I will show you in other names, or there's a chart pattern, or there's a flag, that curl becomes more efficient, right? That curl becomes more efficient to trade. And that's what happened. You see this 512, second 512 curl pushed your stops under right there, just like when I gave the stops here, and then you long it. And guess what? The VIX finally broke the plan I gave, VIX 2350. And then you get long. I had stepped away. Funny thing, I was stepped away on this curl, so I personally missed it, but the traders in the community got it. So that was your long. And this is where you make money. But now comes other tricky part. It was not a smooth push, right? We are going into the gap. Never forget the concept of gap. Very important concept. When we start to go in the gap, we fill the gap usually. And when we're filling the gap, this pullback comes, right? Pullback comes. This pullback was at 1210. And this was right. This pullback, you see that VIX started to fade, but market didn't move much. But it was moving, right? It was this was the choppy move. You could make a little bit here. Now, when it dips here, when it pulls back here, 1210, because VIX is bouncing to right there on the support, resistance becomes support. Now, you can either stop out or you can wait. But a lot of traders will stop out here. But the thing is, it's still holding these clouds, 3450 clouds, still holding 3450 clouds, pushing, coming back, pushing, coming back. So this really, it was not a clean trend. You really needed a lot of patience, because when you're trading, especially the option traders, when you get these three candles, they panic. And that's valid, you will, because the options lose a lot of money. So today we had to use the 3450s. That was your stops. And so that's when I say that today bounce was tough to trade for the market index traders. That's why our initial calls failed. But you could definitely do that. And if you don't need to know the system, right? Today was a day where the curl was not clean. but you definitely got the gap fill, right? What did I say? Pre-market lows. Use the pre-market lows as the levels. Even I tweeted about it. So when I tweeted about it this morning, so I said that watch wicks pre-market lows need to be held, right? So you see that, right? So you see that how that it worked out. So even the traders on Twitter use that concept to long the market. So I personally didn't really do that great with the bounce because I missed the second curl. But I really want to tell the traders who kind of even struggle with this bounce that it was not an easy bounce to trade with the options, but with the shares it was fine. And especially if you go to the midday curls, because remember, usually where we're used to 10 a.m. curls, also the second curls are sometimes better when VIX broke down here. So hopefully this clarifies the full move today, and you understood that how we short in the morning and why the curls were, the market push was a choppy. If you respected 34.50, guys, you made money, right? It was all about 34.50, and then the sudden push comes and you make money, and you will see how we trade the individual names. Let's go to the next one. So let's talk about Tesla, and we talk about NVDA. We'll talk about those two names today. Let's talk that NVDA and Tesla. So Tesla and NVDA both were short at the open, similar to SPY QQQs, right? Tesla. And let's go back to our game plan here. Let's go to the game plan. Tesla game plan. Bearish bias, only long if 250 holds, no go under 247. So right at the open, Tesla was short. Right at the open, Tesla was short. I'm going to 3 minutes to show you guys a little in a better way. Tesla was short, right? You see that 250 when I gave the short, 932, and and then Tesla was trading at the short at trading at 244s by 945s, right? So they were trading at 945s, so you could make enough profit there for $5 per share. Options, you could make that. So we were short. That was again at morning 10 a.m. trade where you could make that short trade on Tesla. But that was just a morning trade, and then came the bounce, so we had to stop out. So we stopped out. We stopped out when this pushed. We tried to long. I gave a long on Tesla at 248, and Tesla pushed, but 34.50 reject. So that's fine. That is fine because 34.50 is always a resistance. When it pulled back, we stopped out. We took a loss because if we didn't stop out here, we would have lost more money by the time it filled back. Now came the second curls, and that's where you can retry the longs. I was not a fan of it until you got like the bigger breakout right here. So that's why when I say the longs were a little tough today, you could long here, but then you have to use this same risk of the pre-market lows, right? So that was why Tesla was a little tough there. But once you get the second curl, then you use the 34.50s, 34.50, 34.50. So 34.50 clouds was more important. So same thing was for NVIDIA. We short and the open. You see that? Short and the open and close out. If you don't want to trade open, that's fine, leave it. Because once something comes back over pre-market lows, it's not going to work. And this can happen. Once the key is to keep your loser small. And NVIDIA also rejected 34.50. We stopped out, took a loss, scratch, and we moved on. Then came the second curl. And even that was choppy, but then we had this down trend line push curl, right? Then you could trade that as well. So when I say that the curl was choppy, your stops based upon the 512s were not going to work today. Your stops had to be pre-market lows. Look here. You see that? The pre-market lows. So that was the pre-market lows held. And same thing for Tesla. When you're trying to long Tesla again, your stops are right here at pre-market lows. If you play this curl, the stops are pre-market lows. So that's the concept you could use today. And that's how a lot of traders were long. And, I gave the MTF target, filling the gap. You see NVIDIA fill the MTF. So that was the complete story about Tesla and NVIDIA today. Initial calls were loser. I didn't trade the second calls. A lot of traders in the community did do that. All right, so next we're going to look at AMD today. So let's see what was AMD doing. So AMD was initially a short, and it was a short loser because we were shorting the 100 breakdown, right? Yes, it flushed a buck, but we were looking for more. Right then a swipe came on AMD and we got out of the AMD. So let's see here, AMD plan, short under 100, long over it. So that was our plan. Simple plan on AMD was we were short under 100, long over it. So as soon as you see the swipe back up, you can get back long in if you want. Your risk is $100. Or or you can just cover your short and just leave it alone, right? So AMD was short. You see that was short 100 triggered. As soon as it swiped back up, I told the traders out of the short, and then it went to consolidation phase, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. It was not a short because it was holding this level. You can clearly see. Then it was a trend line midday setup. It was midday setup, right? So that's the setup I told everybody, and I told them to put their stops right here. And that was trend line push over 34.50. This was a midday setup, 50-60 cent, your risk. And it did give a nice trade towards 150, like a buck and a half. You risked 50-60 cents, you made a buck. So you can see that. So that was the setup on AMD. Was a loser on the short for us this morning. And then if you got the 100 long, good for you. But if you missed it, then this repeatable up, down, up, down, up, down. Like I said, when you combine the clouds with the chart patterns, it's more effective. So that was our AMD setup. All right, let's talk about Apple. So Apple was notable today. So the thing was, Apple was showing a lot of relative strength, right? Apple was showing a lot of relative strength today. It did reject a little bit, but I told it's not a short. It was the strongest name today. Let's look why. So Apple trade with the market versus 512s. Trade with the market versus 512s. But Apple was not moving with the market. I even tweeted about it. That Apple is a relative strength, right? So Apple is showing relative strength. It was showing a relative strength, and it held up. So when something is showing relative strength, guys, when market bounces, if something is strong when market is weak, and it stays strong, if market, it's going to be more strong when market bounces. It's the name you should focus on. That's what I teach every day, to everyone, my students and in the community and followers, that anything which is strong, you have to focus on that relative strength. That's what it means, the relative strength. So that was a relative strength on Apple. So it was not a short. It was a long, and then it gave a flag breakout at 10:15 a.m. And there was an upgrade by we posted the upgrade by Goldman Sachs. There's an upgrade which helped it, and all day it was a long. Let's look at Apple levels 215, 217. So 217 was your risk. You long it. This was the flag breakout that I mentioned, and all day it was long. MTF your first target. You can get out right here, or you can use the MTF support when 512 is there. MTF is there. You can use that. But that was definitely an all-day long winner for the community. So you see, there were setups. We got chopped on NVDA, Tesla in the morning, but definitely Apple was a better one. There was another loser today. Not really loser. It did give us a decent fade, but it was again similar to how we were trading AMD, right? We were shorting Reddit. Reddit was a short right off the gate, 100 short, flush to 97. As soon as it swipes up, you get out. Faked out from 34.50, flushed, and then pushed the same. You see, it's the same character. It was moving the market, same character as NVIDIA and Tesla. So that was the Reddit, which was a morning short loser, and then a call there. So next one we're going to look at is CELH, right? So CELH was MTF long today. Let's go to the game plan. Let's see what the game plan was. CELH was, let's see here, upgraded by Tourist trade versus MTF clouds, 3360, 3420. Simple setup, guys. MTF push. I personally was too focused on the market. Usually I focus more on the news plays, but this was a good setup. There was a lot of flow on CELH. It's pushed, it pushed into 10 a.m. Then even from that, it pushed it to 36.75. And when it's broke down, you get out, right? So CLH was a nice trade, decent flow. There are definitely some good setups today. CELH, Scallywag was on top of it. That was a nice call out there. Emerald was on top of it. So yeah, CLH had a flow. So it was a good setup, good long winner for the community. So there are some other plays, other setups today that were decent. LMT was another one which was decent. LMT was, let's see here, trade versus MTF, long over, short under. It was a similar setup to CELH. Today all the setups that were working were MTFs. I did mention that when we don't have MTFs on everything else because everything is far away from the daily and 1 hour EMAs. That's why there's no MTF cloud. But if you see this LMT, you saw that CELH, they were decent longs. We had on our game plan, only bullish name from the game plan, and it did push nicely. So let's look at some other names here. Baba. So let's see Baba. So Baba. So what did I say on Baba, right? Watch the China names, 512 watch and neutral bias, no go under 130. Chinese names usually have been bouncing from the gap downs, and this is what Baba did a 512 curl, held 3450. Very important. This is where you buy, and you trade it all the way up. Let's look at some more plays from the game plan. CAVA. So what was CAVA doing? So CAVA was, let's see here, bearish to neutral bias, upgrade 80 to 81, 84, but it never broke the 512s, right? You see that it never broke the 512s. Swipe up, push, pull to 3450 and push higher. You see how 3450 was so important today, guys. That was your risk to trade. It was not easy setups to trade today, but there are definitely some good setups. So APP was a similar thing. APP did the same exact thing. You see how everything was doing the same exact thing that the most of the market did. Flush, failed curls, and happens. But it was the second curl that was profitable, right? So second curl, guys, that's important. The second curl, and also you can call it a double bottom, and the pre-market levels, so importance of the pre-market lows. And that was the move on APP. So it's important. Sometimes the first curls are not good, and sometimes the second curls give you much better setup. And when 512 and 3450 are very close, you can see that how the move happens after we push over 3450. All right. So next we're going to look at Lily. Lily was a decent flag break. I mentioned in the community that Lily is having a flag. Initially it was a short, but then it gave a 512 curls right here. And this happened. I sent the alert as well. 512 curls were right here at 806, 807. The alert was a little later. But you see that from the 512 curls alert, it went on to push 3450, flagging, and went all the way to the MTF clouds. So you see that where the long was, Lily was right here, was the long. So those were kind of the setups. And same thing was for AVGO. You see this flag break with the 512 curls, and then it pushed higher from that 512 curls, and then 3450 holds, and that it went all the way higher towards the end of the day, right? So those were some of kind of day to day, guys. Really wanted to recap today because it was really a tough day for many new traders, and that's fine. Sometimes you don't have a clean trend, you have a choppy trend, and we live with that and we learn from it, and then we'll execute it next day. All right, hopefully this was helpful. Take care. Bye-bye.